Marvelous debates.
How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Marvelous Debates. Today our topics are going to be a little bit about Morbius, but before we get into any of that, we'd like you to hit the subscribe button and like, and please leave a comment if you think that any of this piques your interest, and let us know what you think.
So we want to talk about the Morbius movie coming out here with Sony and how it might connect with the MCU and different things versus the comic books and the 1994 animated Spiderman TV series. Just kind of compare it all together and see, you know, what's different, what's the same, and what can we expect from this new film coming out. And hopefully you guys are excited about it just as much as we are. So we got Jared Leto playing Morbius, and he also played the Joker in Suicide Squad. Did you ever see that?
I did. Saw that in theaters. Very disappointed, honestly.
Yeah, I did hear that a lot of people wasn't too crazy about his role on the Joker. And it's kind of hard to compare it to, you know, Heath Ledger Joker, the one we had in Batman. I mean,
I'm obsessed with that Joker. Yeah. And, you know, it's not to say that he actually did a bad job portraying his version of the Joker. His version was good. Right. For its standards. Right. For the Joker he was playing, like, it was more like a mob type. He was into jewels and whatnot. The Joker I liked, the Heath Ledger version, he didn't care about nothing but chaos. It really brought out the Joker in me. Yeah. Like, it was kind of crazy. But this is Marvel, not DC. What are we doing?
Well, we're talking about the actor. We're talking about his role in comparing him. You know, he's a good actor. So I got high hopes for him. You know, we know he's a good actor, and hopefully he can bring us something really good to the table. You know, we've watched the 1994 animated Spiderman TV series, and in that show, the Morbius character was not so much sucking blood. I don't think he did any blood sucking, but he took plasma from innocent people or enemies.
This hunger is like the vampire bat whose genes I have inherited. I hunger for plasma. I took it through my hands. I could feel it coursing through his skin right into my fingers.
Yep. Why do you think that he took plasma versus sucking blood? Like, what's your idea on that?
That's a good question. And it seems like from what we've been seeing from all the teasers of this new Morbius film that we're not going to see the plasma thing in motion. I think the plasma idea was set up for the animated series because it was more kid friendly. Yeah. They never showed blood. It wasn't that type of cartoon. Right. So I feel like that was just set in place because we can even look back into the Morbius comic books. He was a bloodsucker. Right. And he actually he found a taste for superhero blood versus any normal blood, which is kind of cool to me to think that would sustain him longer, keep him more comfortable, just to help with his cravings, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But so yeah, there is a big difference between that series from 1994 to what we're going to be seeing in this new Morbius film. I'm glad they didn't go with plasma. I think that was. I'm glad.
Kind of silly, but it was good for the young kids.
It was. It was, yeah. And I agree. And you're right. It's, you know, I mean, this is. I feel like if Sony and Marvel could, they would actually be doing it a little darker. It would be, you know, like we know about Venom, how they wanted to turn that into a darker thing, but they cut out a lot of scenes that were too graphic.
For PG-13.
They brought it down to PG-13 because they just wanted to keep it friendly for everybody, which, you know, I understand that.
Makes sense, yeah.
But I honestly would like to see a darker version of it all, kind of more or less how they portray it in the comics. Right. But so far, everything that we've got and seen hasn't disappointed, regardless of all the extra gore and bloody content and whatnot. And that just goes to prove that you can still enjoy something without having to really take it too far, I guess, in a sense. But there is a big difference. I mean, from plasma to blood-sucking, I mean, how are we going to see Morbius deal with his newfound powers versus how we saw him deal with it in the animation that we saw growing up as kids.
Right, because in the animation, it seemed like he always needed that plasma to keep his energy and strength up, which will, same with vampires and blood and thirst. They need that for food, for strength and everything. So it's just a different way of looking at it, I guess. And just so you guys know, we always reference the 1994 Spider-Man animated series because we grew up watching that, and I'm sure a lot of you viewers out there did as well, but it's just something that we really know about and kind of compare that as well compared to the comics and stuff.
Oh, it was a big part of our childhood.
Right, so it's kind of neat to see the differences. And we do see in the trailer him jumping on people, biting them in the neck. It's pretty obvious that in this movie it's going to be a blood-sucking vampire, which is pretty sweet. I mean, you need that for a vampire, so it's pretty cool.
You do. We talk about Blade coming into it, and this and that. Now, Morbius is not considered an undead vampire. He's a living vampire. Right. His powers are very different from undead vampires that Blade goes up against normally.
Well, we do know that Morbius' powers, he can heal himself, similar to Wolverine.
Which we see with a lot of the Marvel characters. To an extent, they all seem to have this quick regeneration.
Right.
Quick healing ability.
Yeah.
We all definitely know that Wolverine topples pretty much all of them, maybe except for Deadpool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The guy who can't die.
Right.
So he's got his healing, he's got echolocation, and obviously increased strength. You see him out in that new trailer. He's weak, he's pale, he's pretty much dying. He's got some sort of bad blood disease going on that is basically almost uncurable until he figures out a way, which has some serious side effects. It really rejuvenated him. That might have been part of his healing powers.
Oh, you see that. I know what you mean by how he had this transformation from being the sickly. And we've seen in the teasers how he's on crutches. Like he's on these crutches
since a kid.
Since a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then after this transformation, like we see with a lot of the Marvel characters, there's just a total muscle rejuvenation, and it's almost like steroids times 10.
Yeah, it's like Captain America going into that vault and coming out.
Right?
It's like similar to that in a sense, maybe not to the extent, but pretty close.
So we can almost guarantee that almost every Marvel character, besides how different a lot of their powers are, they always get that enhanced strength boost. Yeah, which is it kind of makes sense because you need that. Yeah, if you're going to go up against half the characters that they have in the MCU.
Right. And we all know that he's kind of a villain to Spider-Man, but at the same time he's kind of an anti-hero like Venom. So, he's not necessarily bad, but he's not necessarily good.
And let's take a minute right here to actually think about this, because I've thought about this a couple different times now. Now, in the MCU, they've done all these off-branch movies of all these individual superheroes. We've got Iron Man, we got Ant-Man, we got Captain America, we got the Hulk. And then Sony's actually doing their own thing like that, because the MCU, all these different superheroes, they all cross each other in the Avengers. Sony went the other direction, and they're doing all villains. Yeah. And so far, we've got one that's it's Venom, AntiHero, its own villain film, and there's now we got Morbius coming out. We've had talk about the Craven movie coming out, but they're still not sure if they're even going to do that. I don't know if it has something to do with the deal for MCU and Sony, something they might have put into place that's preventing that, or maybe it's still going to happen. I don't know, but it's still just kind of cool to think that Sony's doing the anti-hero thing. MCU's been doing its hero thing. It's pretty neat to think about.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm very excited. I think it's pretty neat how they're getting all these so-called villains together, making these standalone movies, and then who knows what could come of it. We could have this could be our way of making the Sinister Six for Spider-Man. Starting all these solo films and then putting them together. Kind of like how they do with the heroes and then the Avengers. It's pretty neat to see Sony doing kind of the opposite but similar things that Marvel did in the MCU. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's pretty cool.
I didn't think of it like that, but that's cool, yeah.
Yeah, I hope that they kind of continue to do it that way. It's very neat and different, and I think that that's very good for them. Let's go to our tongue twister of the day.
Tongue twister of the day.
Our tongue twister of the day is Hulk hucked a handful of hammers.
You tiny Avenger!
What are you, crazy?
Yes!
All right, can you say that 3 times fast?
I will try. Hulk hucked a handful of hammers. Hulk hucked a handful of hammers. Hulk hucked a handful of hammers. Hulk hucked a handful of hammers.
I don't think he hugged them. Yeah, but
Yeah. Well, I know he's kind of hugging one right
Hulk
now.
hucked a handful of hammers.
So now you say it 5 times fast.
5 times. Hulk hucked a handful of hammers. 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 Hulk hucked a handful of hammers.
You did better than I did.
You got to have the huck.
A handful of
Got to
hammers.
huck that loogie.
So there are 2 major things I think we see in this Morbius trailer that, kind of worthwhile in talking about. They connect to the MCU, I think, or possibly. So first off, we got Morbius walking by he's walking in the streets, and behind him there's a picture or a graffiti of Spider-Man with murderer written across it. Now, what do you think that means for this movie or Sony? Do you think that it's the MCU Spider-Man? Do you think it's just the Sony Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in the past? Or do you think it's just all connecting in some way?
Morbius, I'm sure him and Spider-Man are going to meet up at some point in this film. Probably not, but they do make a lot of cameos and Easter eggs referring to Spider-Man's current situation.
Yeah. So anyways, the second thing I wanted to talk about in the Morbius trailer that's got everyone talking is we got a Spider-Man MCU villain at the end talking with Morbius, and that's the Vulture. And we see him talking with Morbius at the very end. He says, "What's up, Doc?" The Morbius is a doctor. So, and he's wearing the same white clothes, white suit that he was wearing at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming in the jail cell. So I mean, it's just hard to imagine that it's not all connected. I mean, it's basically saying, here you go, guys, we're making this happen. It's the way I see it. What do you think's going to happen between them two, and why they were, they wanted to show that and meet up and talk? What could they be talking about? Are they planning on something against Spider-Man? Does it have, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, the way that they're perceiving Morbius in this actually kind of, it definitely kind of psychs me out. Because, well, if we went back to, let's say we were talking about the animated series from '94, Spider-Man, they were rivals in college and whatnot, and, Spider-Man was trying to figure out how to get rid of his powers with the Neogenesis. And Morbius kind of fumbles over what Peter Parker's doing and ends up getting his powers by a bat that just gets in the way. I don't understand how Morbius in this is going to have a grudge against Spider-Man. I don't know if it's going to be something that maybe the Vulture puts in his head.
So we don't really know the connection between Spider-Man and Morbius yet. Like you said, you know what it is in the comics or the TV show or whatever, but it doesn't really, Morbius is new to us, so we don't really know anything between him and Spider-Man.
Well, and even in the comics, they didn't meet each other until they were both trying to figure out how to get rid of their powers. Right. And then they end up duking it out. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. And Morbius actually being the anti-hero could turn to that. Like, I want this, I was better off being a sickly man than being this monster. Who knows? Hard to say.
What if, the Spider-Man is actually in the Morbius movie, and Spider-Man as a good person, Morbius is out there feeding on innocent people, and he comes in contact with them to kind of stop him or stop something that he's doing or that might be important to Morbius, and that's where he gets his grudge from him. We don't know. I mean, maybe he's going to have that cameo where he comes in and webs him up and stops him, and then that's where his main grudge comes from against him and becomes that villain towards Spider-Man. Who's to say that that's not possible, and that's where it will bring in that hatred for Spider-Man, and then he meets up with the Vulture and everyone else, and they're saying, "What's up, Doc? Hey, we can get this web slinger together. Let's form a team." Got so many characters that can be in that Sinister Six, and most of them he has already upset in some sort of way. Now, Morbius, we don't know yet, and I think that this movie opens the door for him to come in and do something like that, and that's where the Vulture will come in and be like, "Hey, we got a proposition for you. we can get the web head together. So you got the Vulture, you got Scorpion, which we don't really know how he upset him yet in the MCU, but they will tie that in somehow. You know, maybe it was a rob heist or anything like that. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He stopped him somehow. He ticked him off. We already know that in the MCU, he was talking to the Vulture. He wants the webhead. He wants to know his name, and he wants to get him. So you got Scorpion, you got the Vulture. You know, here comes Venom. Who knows if he's going to be a part of it? I mean, Mysterio. And there's obviously all this talk about Kraven the Hunter. You know, just all these characters are coming into play, and eventually, you know, it's gonna, I think, form a pretty big alliance against Spider-Man. You know, and who knows about Norman Osborn? You know, the Green Goblin. I mean, if that comes into play, that'd be huge. There's just so many things that could happen.
Let's take a minute to ask the viewers if they'd like to leave a comment and let us know what you think about everything that we've been discussing and debating about, and some of our theories, and let us know if you got any interesting theories that you'd like to explain to us, and maybe we'll put them in our next video. We definitely are hoping to see a Spider-Man cameo in it. Who the antagonizer is in this, the antagonist, we have really no clue at this point. It could very well be possibly somebody that's working with him in this lab. I haven't really seen anything about it. That one's going to stump me for a while now. I'm going to be searching stuff up all night and trying to figure out what's going on with that. Yeah. But very excited for the movie. You got anything to say? I know you got a lot to say. You got a lot to say.
No, I think we pretty much covered most of it.
And that's a first.
Yeah.
First.
I'll just shut my mouth now.
But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. It's been another great episode of Marvelous Debates. I hope you liked all the content and all the theories, and we love constructive criticism, so give it to us. We're not afraid.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like and a comment down below, and we will get back to you.
And don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Unless it's a super
powerful drug.
Superhuman serum.
Not super powerful drug, like a superpower drug.
Super,
that's what I meant.
Power drug.
Not a super powerful drug.
Not a super powerful drug.
No, but a super powered drug.
Super powered drug.
Like Captain America or something.
Super soldier drug.
I would do that.
I would do the super soldier
I would be peer pressured into doing a
If
super
I turned
soldier
into Captain Red Skull, though, I would be irate.
Yeah, I think that there's a possibility of that happening, so
probably.
I would stay away from that for you.
I'll just drink coffee.
I think I might be okay.
Marvelous Debates.